All right, summer's officially over in Pitt County because it's football season. High school games start this Friday. East Carolina has its home opener next Saturday night. And we're here again for your Fearless Football Forecast. I'm your host, Ronnie Woodward. Joining me is Tony Castleberry and our sports editor, Jim Gentry. Guys, you ready for some football?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's an exciting time of year, busy time of year, but we enjoy it. Let's get going.
Definitely. It's here one way or another, so we got to do this.
Great point.
One quick programming note before we start. This Friday, in this Friday's paper is our annual Pigskin Preview tab, jam-packed full of previews of each high school team, East Carolina info, really good info on Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium, the 50-year anniversary.
Yep.
So make sure you get Friday's paper or look at reflector.com. If you're a football fan, there's a lot of good stuff there for you. Speaking of previews, Tony, getting into these games here, probably you could call our game of the week here locally. Two really good teams, North Pitt at D.H. Conley.
Yeah, I definitely think it's the game of the week, and it's a matchup of two teams who they've kind of gotten to prevalence here, but in different ways, because Conley was a real quick turnaround with Pascal, a couple years. Dave Bowles kind of done it at North Pitt in a different way. He's been there for a long period of time. They've been really good in recent years, as has Conley. I think the classifications, North Pitt being 2A, Conley being 4A, really doesn't matter here.
Yeah. All right, who's your pick in that one?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Conley's losing a lot from last year, losing Kirkpatrick and Cummings. They're not going to have Gorham back for a long time. North Pitt has everybody back, and they were really good. I don't know, though. That's going to be tough for them to go to Conley and win. I think it'll be a close game, but I think Conley pulls it out.
All right, Jim?
I'm going to go with North Pitt on this one. This is always the toughest week to do this. No one's seen these teams over in practice or in scrimmages, so it's kind of hard to tell. But I'm going to go with North Pitt's big play ability. They got a reigning offensive player of the year, Brian Staten, and I just think they're going to put up some quick points. But I think it's going to be a close game. I mean, I think it's going to come down to a touchdown here or there. But I'm just, without having seen Conley or North Pitt, I'm going to go with North Pitt's big play ability.
I like that pick for sure. I think you're right. I think the top-end talent favors North Pitt with that backfield, the running backs. But I'm going to go with Conley in a close one because I think in the trenches, I think overall Conley maybe has more depth. They might not have that big playability, but I think they grind out a close win. I think we all agree it's going to be a close game.
Yeah.
I'll go with Conley kind of grinding out a victory there.
You see how you picked both teams?
I did.
Yeah.
I went with Conley.
Well done.
In a close game.
North Pitt's awesome. They're really good. They got all these great players. But I went to Conley too.
All right. I'll be more definitive on this one. Jim, our next game is J.H. Rose, a team that a lot of people are excited about for one big reason mainly, but they host Athens Drive.
Catawba Street is the big deal there.
No doubt.
Obviously being recruited by the biggest schools in the country, everybody wants them. Very rare that we see this kind of talent come through Pitt County. I think Andre Brown was the last one.
And he was a Rose guy. Exactly.
Yep.
Obviously a lot of tension there, but we're talking about a Rose team that's had a lot of changes.
Definitely.
New coaching staff, and there was a lot of turmoil last year with the controversy with D.H. Conley and a lot of suspensions and things like that. So I think everybody's really ready for a fresh start at Rose, and I think the fact that a kid like Street will get so much attention, I think, is a welcome change for that Rose coaching staff.
Definitely. That's a really good point. Who's your pick in that game?
Man, this is a real tough one. We talked about this last night. Athens Drive and Rose. Again, it's kind of hard to tell, but with Rose being home, I'm going to give them just a narrow edge. Athens Drive may have a little more talent, but I think with that defensive front Rose has, they may be able to shut down the run and put some pressure on Athens Drive's quarterback. But I haven't seen either team. Again, always hard to make a call, but I think I'm going to pick Rose being at home.
All right, I'm going to go with Rose as well. There's my definitive pick.
Right on.
I grew up in the Raleigh area. Athens Drive was never really a powerhouse by any means. I think they've gotten better since way back in the day when I was in high school.
Yeah.
But I agree. Without knowing a whole lot about either team, I'll go with Rose. They're the local team. They have a couple of really, really nice players. I'll go with the Rapids.
You mentioned the turmoil. Rose has already faced some adversity in this preseason as well.
That's right.
And in talking with Coach Wojtecki, they're ready to get after it. I mean, they really are. Like Jim mentioned, I think they're ready to wipe the slate clean, start from scratch. I think they'll do that by getting a win on Friday.
All right, next game here, our last home game for our local teams. I'll preview this one. Plymouth is at Farmville Central. It seems like these teams open the year, every year with each other, and it's not an easy task for Farmville for sure. Plymouth won a state championship last year. They're kind of a program that's good every year.
Yeah.
But I think a key for this game and probably for the whole season for Farmville, is injuries. And the injury bug has bit them every year the last couple of years. I think if they can stay healthy, they have some talent, they have some positive things going. But I think the jury's still out with Farmville, just as far as how many wins they can get, what they can do, on both sides of the ball. For my pick there, I think you got to pick Plymouth as the smart pick. But I'm intrigued to see what Farmville can do. But I'll go with Plymouth to start off 1-0. What about you, Tony?
I like how Farmville closed the year last year. They really showed signs that they were starting to battle through some of those injuries that you mentioned. And Lord, the adversity that any team in the area has faced, Farmville Central's had a ton of it. I like the fact that Coach Gardner's talking about they're committed to being a smash-mouth football team again. They're going to run the ball. They're going to try to hit you defensively in the face, I think was his exact words. You got to like that kind of attitude coming into a new season. That being said, I don't think they're getting that first win on Friday. I think Plymouth wins.
All right, Jim?
Yeah, I think Josh Jones coming back from Farmville Central too. Finished strong. Big part of that strong finish for them. I think that'll help big time. The guy they kind of build around somebody with a little star power for them. But you're dealing with a defending state champion coming into town. I just think it's going to be a little too much for Farmville. Expect them to get a win opening night, so I think Plymouth will win that first game.
All right, next game here, Tony. It seems like another close game as well. Usually, Ayden-Grifton is at Riverside.
Yeah, and two teams that seem to always open the year against each other. But we talk about not having many sure things. Over the past few years, Ayden-Grifton has been one of the sure things. We can pretty much count on them being good every year. They're going to be well coached. They're going to be big up front. They're going to run and run and run some more. I feel like Ayden-Grifton is one of those teams, even though they're moving up a classification and they're one of the smallest 2A schools in the state, I don't think Coach Cornwell is going to use that as an excuse. I feel like his teams, they have a level that he's trying to reach every single year, no matter what classification they're in.
All right, what's your pick there?
I think they'll beat Riverside. It was a close game last year. Touchdown separated the teams. Not knowing anything about Riverside at all, I'm just going to go on what I know, and I know that Coach Cornwell's team is probably going to be ready to play. I think they'll win.
I agree. Yeah, Jim, go ahead.
I'm going to go with Ayden-Grifton as well. They got a couple big names coming back. R.J. Nelson rushed for 1,300 yards, and that offense is pretty good because you got to share a lot of carries when you're a running back at Ayden-Grifton. Drew Turnage, who's committed to East Carolina, is coming back. He'll be involved in every facet of the game. Again, not knowing much about Riverside, like Tony said, but right now, I've never seen Ayden-Grifton lack for talent for a school that size.
Absolutely.
They're like Tony said, they'll be the second smallest 2A school in the state.
That's right,
Like Ronnie was saying earlier in his preview. So we're talking about a small school, but they seem to just produce some real men over there who are really good at just smash mouth football
every year.
So I'm gonna pick Ayden-Grifton.
Yeah, I think y'all got it perfectly right. I mean, Drew Turnage is a kid that's committed to East Carolina. Ayden-Grifton doesn't have a lot of kids usually that are big time D1.
Yeah,
that's a true asset to have for a smaller school like that. I think the running backs are too much. Ayden-Grifton gets a win there. Our last game here, Jim, South Central travels to Wilson Hunt, coming off a couple good seasons with Hunt there.
Yeah, the runner-up in the 3AA last year, always pretty solid football team.
Yep.
South Central was kind of trying to find its identity, I think, last year, 3-8. It's one of those schools that it's always kind of hard to tell what you're going to get from South Central from week to week. Part of it depending on whether Furlough was going to be able to play or not. If he was healthy, it was a completely different team than when he was when he was on the field. So it's just one of those things where you never know what South Central team you're going to see.
Yeah.
It could be a really good one, or a team that struggles to get anything done on offense.
Yeah, definitely. What's your pick in that one, Jim?
I'm just going to have to go with Wilson Hunt. I imagine they got a lot of talent coming back from that team that made that deep playoff run last year, and the fact that they're at home. And again, I kind of want to see South Central's talent before I could really pick them against a tough competition like this.
Yeah, I agree. I'll go with Hunt as well. Starting off the season, going to Wilson Hunt, that's a tough task for sure. Without knowing too much about the team, just to continue the theme here, I'll go with Hunt. Tony?
I like the fact that South Central is scheduled pretty tough. I mean, even though they're a classification above in 4A, they're taking on one of the best 3A schools in the state, definitely for the last couple of years. And you're right about Furlough, Jim. Really fun to watch. One of the most exciting players we've got in the area when he's healthy. That being said, going to Hunt and getting a win, particularly on opening night when they're going to be pumped up, that's going to be too tough for South Central. I think Hunt gets the win.
All right, well, there's our show, our previews, our picks. Like I said, make sure you get Friday's paper or check reflector.com. A lot of good info there to get you ready for the football season. Go see one of these games Friday night, and then we'll see you back next week.